everyone. It's a wonderful night in the Transverse. I'm your host, Emily. Welcome to the Transgender Show. I'm excited to welcome to the show tonight someone that I think a lot of you know from Instagram. A lot of us are interconnected there. Legitimately Leah. She is a self-proclaimed queen of vacuuming. She says she's chaotic, a cat lover, and a few other things that are suddenly escaping my brain. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. Leah, welcome to the show.
Hi, great to be here. Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you here. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right, trying not to die of heat currently. How about you?
It's not too bad here in Southern California. We've gotten some kind of warmth in the day, but nothing too bad. It's Southern California, so
Yeah.
nothing worth complaining about. To start off, Leah, how do you identify?
I identify as a transgender woman.
How did you choose your name?
I, well, I I had just gone on to a lot of these baby naming websites, and
Hmm.
I wrote down in a journal, you know, which ones that kind of I felt fit my essence and my vibe, and I kind of just tested them out in my head, like, how would I feel being called this? And I crossed them out one by one until I was
Hmm.
left with two. That was Sasha and Leah. I actually tried going by Sasha for one day. That I didn't really feel like that wholly fit me.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, I'll try Leah. And I tried it and I instantly fell in love with it because, I feel that's what captures my vibe and my essence and really what a lot of people would say they see me as.
Wow. I love that you were able to figure out that the other name that Sasha didn't fit for you within one day. And then when you tried Leah, it was right, huh? Wonderful.
Yeah.
When did you first realize you were trans?
Oh gosh. When I first realized I was, I want to say 13, 14. It was definitely in one of my earlier middle school years. Yeah, it was, which is like 7 years ago now. Wow, seems so interesting to think about that. But yeah, I had actually came across I Am Jazz, and I had watched the initial episode, and Jazz explained, that she felt like she was a girl inside of a boy's body.
Hmm.
And something about that just resonated with me. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not normal. Like, other people don't just feel this and just do nothing about it and say, oh, yeah, yeah. And yeah, so then that kind of like started that snowball effect of okay, well, here's this information, but I'm not going to do anything about it right now. Um,
Okay.
or I didn't even think I was gonna do anything about it, like, ever.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, I guess here we are now.
Yeah. You realize that, yeah, I've always had this feeling that I was a girl trapped in a boy's body. Did that kind of strong feeling of that identity make it easier for you, you feel, to actually start your transition, to take those first steps and feel confident in moving it forward?
Definitely when, I started heavily questioning my gender identity around the age of 18, that experience of having that aha moment at age 14 kind of like solidified, oh, yes, like, this isn't a new thing. Like, it's a thing I've felt before, and it's definitely like going on. I'm definitely feeling this sort of mismatch between my identity and my outward appearance, so to speak.
Mm. What were some of the clues for you that you can look back and say, "Oh yeah, that was one of the things that should have suggested this to me earlier"?
I think a big one is puberty, just getting so uncomfortable with all the body hair that was popping, especially the ones on my face. And definitely just I never really hung around a lot of, you know, I never really had any best friends who were also boys. Um a lot of my friends were girls,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of I don't know, that kind of made sense to me because I had realized that I couldn't really connect with them, and I
Yeah.
couldn't really yeah, I just felt out of place, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, those are the ones that stick out to me um, a lot. There are a lot of little ones that I'm like, oh yes, that come up, but yeah.
So let's move on to coming out. How did that go for you? How did you start that process? Did you do anything like a mass kind of email, or did you have individual conversations? How did you handle that?
Um, I actually did a little bit of both. So, when I was starting the process of coming out, I, sat down with, I individually sat down with a couple of my close friends and family members, and I said, okay, here's like, you know, here's here's the tea, here's what's going on. And here's like the best way I can explain it. And, here's what moving forward, is going to happen. And, what this would necessarily mean for that individual person.
Hmm.
Um, and then when it around the time I started hormones, I had sent emails out to my extended family, who doesn't live anywhere locally to me. So yeah, I had sent emails out to them. I had made a Facebook announcement, also put that on my now long gone Instagram. And I said, okay, here's what's happening. Here's, the best way I can explain it. Here's, what's going to happen going forward. Basically, kind of the things I had said to, my close friends.
Hmm.
Yeah, so yeah, that's kind of how it went, or kind of what I did.
Hmm. So when you came out and you started having these conversations, did you already have sort of your, it sounds like you had your plan for how your transition would go, the things that you would do and what you were looking forward to do. Is that correct?
I actually had no idea
Mm,
what was going to happen. I had just said, oh, the things that, will, I'll definitely, be changing my outward appearance, be changing my name. Just, stay tuned for those changes. And um, yeah, there was, well, you know, sounded like I had everything together. It was, it was, it was kind of a mess on like, what like steps I would actually take on, getting to my end goal, so to speak.
who was the hardest person for you to come out to? Who like did you kind of like fear the most, basically?
Um, it was definitely my mother,
Mm,
and um, how just because of this one thing that had happened when I was 15. I can't remember what prompted this, but basically, we were, I was sitting with my sister, and we were all three kind of talking, and she had explicitly said, and again, I can't remember what we were talking about, so I don't know how we got on that subject, but she said one of her biggest fears was one of us becoming trans and changing dramatically so that, no one would recognize us anymore.
mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and that kind of, after having that sort of little aha moment when I was 14, that kind of, was like the signal, like, okay, if I came out, it would not go well. So I, shoved it deep, deep, deep down into a place where, I wouldn't find it until years later. And yeah, I basically just said, okay, this is something that I'm going to be, that's going to be kept to myself and that I will never tell anyone. Um, so yeah, but when I did come out to her, I was definitely very nervous, and she she definitely did take it very hard. I just remember
Mm-hmm.
seeing her sitting there in tears, and she was like, "Well, I I don't feel like I know you anymore. And I don't know why, but that sort of thing just broke my heart because I know that was, her biggest fear. And
Yeah.
yeah,
So how did you deal with that? How did you kind of break through that with her? And it sounds like you have her more of her acceptance now. How did you break through to
right.
that point and kind of show her that, I'm still the same person inside?
I think it was just a process of, um, throughout my transition and her just realizing, oh, you know, this is still the same person, just, different outward appearance and, basically, same person, just more real, you know?
So it was just a matter of her seeing how happy you were and,
Right.
just the vibrance that you had. Was there anybody that you came out to that you were surprised at their level of support?
Yeah. Definitely, my dad's reaction definitely surprised me in that the support I got from him was just amazing. In fact, after I had that conversation with both of my parents that I was talking about earlier, he pulled me aside and he said, um, "I'll I hope you know that I'll love and support you no matter what," and that just made me feel very warm and, fully accepted. And I, was definitely surprised because I thought he would side with my mother because, that's his wife. And, he would want to, you know, back up the feelings of, my mother. And yeah, but it definitely surprised me.
Hmm.
That's for sure. Yeah.
So going back just slightly, what was that period of time like for you where you're you finally come to understand that what's going on, and you're like, oh, this feeling that I have is something. You have a name for it, you have an understanding of it, and then you have that comment from your mom that that's her biggest fear. How did you deal with that, and what was that period of time like for you?
Um, I pretty much, I still had felt an immense guilt and shame for it, and I can't really put my finger on why exactly. So I didn't really do anything with it, and I knew that then I just thought it was something I wouldn't do anything with. Um, it was just something that would be there and something I would deal with until those feelings got so hard to ignore. Of course. Um, yeah, and then basically, when she had said, "Oh, my worst fear is, either of you becoming trans," um, that kind of like confirmed, and um, that kind of confirmed my feeling of, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna keep this, deep inside of me because I do not want to cause all of this chaos.
Mhm. Did that affect how you once you were ready to come out, did that affect how you felt about approaching and telling other people, either in your family or in your circle of friends?
Um, it actually did. I just thought, I wouldn't there's no way that I could be accepted or, this could be seen as, a real thing and not just, a mental health issue.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that definitely increased my fear of, coming out to my close friends and family because I thought, you know, what if they all feel like that? What if they all feel the way my mother does?
Yeah.
So, or did, I should say.
Hmm. And you were in school at the time, right? So how was the level of acceptance that you found there?
Um, I My school is definitely, one of the places where I felt inspired to take the step of, becoming my true self because um, my school really, really prides itself on um, being inclusive and promoting LGBTQ plus inclusion and acceptance. And I had talked to the then president of the LGBTQ plus club,
Hmm.
and um, I had basically said, when I had come out to some of my close friends, I basically also had to talk with them. And they were like, oh, you are loved, you are valid, and, you're going to have a place here always. And, also we would love to have you in the club.
Hmm.
Um, for me, it kind of um, brought this feeling of, okay, so maybe it's just at home or with my mother that I wouldn't be as accepted. But in an environment such as this is where this is where I feel like I can truly thrive.
Wow. And that, I'm assuming that must have helped a lot to have that such a major sphere of your life, so much time you spend during the day, be a place where you felt accepted.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It was a big relief. And I didn't realize how much of a relief it was until, it actually happened, of
Hmm.
course.
Yeah. This is about the time where we start to talk about community and how you found community of other trans people and, just basically found that acceptance. Did you get enough of that from school and from the groups you joined there, or did you actually seek out trans community outside of that as well?
Oh, yeah. The community at my school is amazing, and there are quite a few queer and trans people who go to my school. So it was really, really nice to have a community such as that. And definitely the community here on Instagram has definitely been one that I'm really grateful for. And yeah,
Hmm. I loved in the pre-interview what you said about the next question. It's the ethereal one. What does transition look like for you?
um, really, I think for me, there's two parts to it. Of course, there's the outward part, which is, my appearance, which, changed from, presenting more stereotypically male to
Hmm.
now stereotypically female. And, just things like bodily changes and going on hormones, for me at least. Yeah. And then there's also the inward transition, which is kind of like the mental shift from, just thinking of yourself one way and then going to another way. And just finally allowing, yourself to, basically blossom into the person that you've always been inside.
Hmm.
I've heard so many times that transitioning is an act of self care, and I could not agree more because it takes a lot um, to finally say, okay, I'm trans. And I'm going to do something about it. It takes a lot of inner strength. It takes a lot of just acceptance, self love to, allow yourself the space and the mental energy to become yourself.
Hmm.
And that in and of itself is very beautiful and arguably one of the most beautiful things about transition.
So it sounds like you've had a pretty good go of things. What have been some of the big hurdles that you've run up against in your transition, like from, I don't know, school administrators or parents? Did you have trouble getting on HRT? What were some of the things that you've had to struggle with, and how have you overcome those?
Um, basically, in my social transition, one of the biggest hurdles I had to come overcome were my grandparents. They were loving and accepting, of course. However, they had explicitly told me that they wouldn't call me Leah until I had legally changed it. So, and I saw my grandparents quite often, and I still do, in fact. Um, and it was really, really, really just it was really hard to hear my pet name, especially after, saying, "This is who I am." And it was, it's really just and and I had, grown up with this notion of, oh, respect your elders. So I
Mhm.
did not feel like I could say something about it at all.
Mm-mm.
Um, so I was very fortunate enough to, after I want to say 4 months of hormones and just socially transitioning to obtain a legal name change and um, change over, everything from my dead name to, my true name. Um, yeah, I felt really fortunate to be able to do that.
Hmm.
However, I think, if I wouldn't have been able to do that, like if I hadn't done that, I would still be dead named.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a big hurdle to jump through. Um, School, it was pretty seamless. Transitioning from one name to another. One of the amazing things about my university is that you can have an option for your chosen name.
Hmm.
And that would show up basically in place of my then legal name, except for on official documents such as, transcripts and things like that.
Nice.
So
Okay.
basically on my ID badge, I was able to change that. And also on a lot of the attendance forms, it would say Leah instead of my dead name, which was really nice. So yeah, it was really good to have that sort of thing when I was, before I had actually legally changed that.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm kind of going through a hurdle right now. So um, if you follow my Instagram, you'll see that I'm in the process of obtaining letters for, getting a consultation for bottom surgery.
Okay.
And I need four letters total. I need two from two different mental health professionals. I need one from my HRT provider, and I need one from my primary care provider, just a letter of referral.
Hmm.
So I've gotten my letter from my therapist and my HRT provider, but I'm just waiting on those last two to even get the consultation, which um, is really just an it's it's a really big form of gatekeeping, and it's something that I don't feel is all that necessary, and it shouldn't be as much of a process to you know
Hmm.
to actually obtain something that's going to, in the long run, increase your quality of life, 100 times fold.
Yeah, those are some rough hurdles. I wanted to go back to the name thing, and that's it's so kind of funny because you can logically think of it and it makes sense. You know, you're not really or not legally that yet, but for someone you love, it's a really arbitrary
Yeah,
barrier again to put up that, it just seems really unfair. If you love someone and you support them and all of that, like, I don't know, it just seems like a cheap kind of petty thing to kind of hold against somebody. Oh, you're not legally Leah yet, so we can't call you that. As if, your family is and the way your family interacts with each other is based on some kind of legal precedent. Like,
exactly.
it's such a bizarre kind of a thought process, and I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Thank you. It's definitely very arbitrary and so unnecessary because I know it's definitely a hard shift for loved ones, but I don't know, just to be like, oh, you're not legally, you know, this name yet.
Mhm.
So, you know, I feel like their thought process was like, you're not legally this name yet, so legally we don't have to call you that, which is I don't even think I need to explain how many problems there are with that.
No.
But
Have your goals and what you have been kind of striving for or, planning for, dreaming of in your transition, has that changed as you've gone along?
oh, it definitely has. Basically, I had this kind of you know, when I was first starting to, transition, socially and, changing or not not changing, but like, coming out with my true identity and my pronouns and name and whatnot. Um, I basically had, you know, told myself kind of internally, like, yes, I will be a woman, but will I be an attractive woman? And that was basically kind of like my, not not fear, but it was kind of like, oh, like I'll just, I just won't be an attractive woman. It's just kind of like a thing.
Hmm.
Um, but and I thought, in order to get there, which is not in any way, the norm. I thought to get there, I would have to, have all of these surgeries and, do every single thing in the book. And you know, just thinking about that, I'm just like, I don't know if I truly want that. Um, but now that I'm in a place where I feel like I'm actually seeing, my true self in the mirror, when I look in the mirror each day.
Hmm.
Definitely I can, say that, oh, I definitely do not need every single thing in the book. And, I feel a lot more at home with this body than I did, I don't want to say than I did with my body a couple of years ago because primarily it's like the same objective body. It's just a different presentation, of
Hmm.
course. But yeah, I definitely feel more at home with this
Yeah.
presentation.
What ways specifically and what things do you do on a day-to-day basis to find validation in yourself? Where do you find the beautiful Leah that you're looking for when you look in the mirror?
That's actually something I'm still working on. Just kind of like my self affirmations of, I am allowing myself to, become my true self, and I am beautiful just the way I am
Mm.
because, yeah, that's something I'm still kind of, you know, it's still a work in progress, and it's definitely going to be something that I'm going to be working on for a bit, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, on the downside actually, are there things that cause you dysphoria these days? And how do you deal with those?
It's definitely I still do feel a lot of bottom dysphoria, which I'm working towards getting bottom surgery. So that's something that is you know I'm working on it. So I don't feel I necessarily need to be actively worrying about it. Um, However, there will be the um, the panic attacks in the shower sometimes, which still
Mm.
happen. Um, It's it's definitely a thing that happens, and it's really difficult, but we're getting through it. Um, but yeah, and sometimes, you know, I'll just take like a selfie of myself and I'll be like, oh my gosh, does it look like I have a 5 o'clock shadow? And like, does my face look masculine? Does my hairline look masculine? Does this, or that, or something, whatever. Like, it's really hard not to go down that rabbit hole of, oh my gosh, like, you know, do I look too masculine, basically? And that's something that still happens, and it's again something I'm working through. Yeah, so dysphoria is still there, and unfortunately, it will be as long as I'm here. So that's definitely something that I'm coming to terms with, and yeah, just remembering that I am, you know, being true to myself every day is pretty freaking great, honestly, and something that just looking back on the progress I've made just internally and externally, and getting to a place where I can look in the mirror and see myself. Um, it's pretty great, and just it's a matter of remembering those beautiful moments, and just those like it's about like reflecting on the
Hmm.
good, um, accepting, ex- reflecting on the good. I can't speak today. um, Reflecting on the good, instead of just dwelling on the things you cannot change in this moment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very wise for someone of your age, and I'm just so grateful that you've been able to, you know, get there, and get to this place of self-acceptance, even with the little pangs of dysphoria that you have. How do you feel that being able to live as yourself affected your mental health?
I can definitely say that, coming out of that dark period was just, I did feel like a big weight was lifted off of my shoulders, and definitely that relief in and of itself felt really great. And however, I'm still dealing with, past internalized, just internalized, like, like I said earlier, like I, had convinced myself that I'm never going to be, attractive, or, the best version of myself. And basically, it's just still kind of dealing with that, and kind of dealing, yeah, like I said earlier, but it definitely has had, a positive impact on my mental health overall. And I feel like, each passing day that I work on it, it just gets better and better, it seems like.
Oh, that's wonderful. Is there anything that you feel you've been able to accomplish because of your transitions?
Um, well, I definitely wouldn't have, been able to speak publicly on a show such as this,
Mhm.
if I, hadn't come out, or, accepted myself to, accepted myself as, a transgender woman. And I had another thing, but I completely forgot what it was. My goodness. Oh yeah, and it was actually when I had first gotten into college. Like, I couldn't see myself, graduating college. Like, definitely, like, that's definitely was and still is the goal. However, when I pictured myself, in the cap and gown, I just couldn't for some reason.
Hmm.
And then when I accepted, my identity, I'm like, ah, yes, there it is. So it kind of like, the fog kind of lifted and allowed all of these new life possibilities to, kind of, you know, open up. And you know, in fact, actually, when I first had gotten into, when I had first started college, I came in as a music performance major, and I thought I was going to get, a degree in piano performance. But now I'm, you know, the ultimate goal is to get my MSW. After to college, go on to grad school and get my MSW, and then just be a social worker for victims of domestic abuse and relationship violence and things like that. So definitely, it allowed, beyond my transition, it allowed me to see, what I wanted for myself in the future. And yeah,
That's a heck of
and
a
it
bonus.
was really, oh, yeah, and that was actually really surprising, and something I did not expect. It's kind of like, you take down this barrier, and it, allows you to see what's ahead, kind of.
I think that pretty much answers the next question, but just in case you have something else, I'd like to go ahead and ask it anyways. What's your favorite thing that you've learned from your transition?
Well, besides learning more about myself, and just, coming to accept my true form, um, is every transition is different. And, transition, isn't this, it's not by the book. It's, like I said, coming to, accept yourself for who you are, and, living your truth each day.
Hmm.
And that's probably the biggest and most valuable thing I've learned.
Great. I think it seems like my last few questions have all kind of like daisy chained and overlapped a lot. So let's see if we get a different answer from this next question than what you just said. what advice do you have for young and closeted trans people out there? And keep in mind that I realize that the fact that you are super young kind of makes this funny to say, young, and young trans people out there. But what advice do you have for somebody that is looking to go through this?
Well, the biggest thing I could say is your time is going to come. Even if you don't think it is, it will. And I feel like, just with everything that, I've been through and my, basically my story kind of shows is that, I never in a million years imagined I would be living as my true form. And your time will come. I promise. Just keep keep on going. It's going to be a difficult road, trust me, but I have total faith in all of you, and I know you will. I know you'll get through it.
Nice encouragement and advice there for everybody that is going to be going through the same things that we've been going through. Leah, thank you so much for being willing to come on the show and share your story and just chat through everything that you've been through.
Of course, thank you so much for having me on.